if you're walking down with your lovely wife, then yes, that's no, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, let's make sure this is working. Did you get in okay? No, yeah, no, it's a bit of a trick. It's a bit of a trick, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I think it's supposed to be nice the next couple of days. I just hope it's nice for Halloween for the kids. That's they're not doing it. Really? That's so interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe because didn't the police chief just pass recently in Southampton? Oh, but not the village. Oh, so where would the village do its thing in Southampton town? Uh huh. Yeah. No kidding. So because I'll be here for the Sag Harbor's doing its thing on Sunday, and then the kids from the school do it on Monday, which is very good. How are you? Wires going all the places the wires need to go. It's a good, no, it's a good hire. I couldn't understand. Yeah. So the television is actually me, and then there was a second conversation. So there's TV. Yeah. So there's two things that we're talking about. One is Neil wanted to have two TVs in the balcony, so that people sitting in the last rows can see. That's the 55 camera. And then I told them to look because what we talked about for the holidays downstairs, right, we always had two televisions downstairs. We need two TVs on rollers. Now, do you know who David from Innovative Tech is the one who was supposed to give? If they're quoting too high a caliber television, we can get a cut. Isn't David the one that did the one? Yeah, he's also buying the whatever stuff we don't yet possess. I believe they're. Yeah, I'm sure it was him, but it was a different company. Well, let's double check and be sure before we. I think it's called Innovative Tech. It's Dave. It's an Italian name. I wish that I could remember. And then and he sent this guy Jaime over who was doing the wiring. That's who I also went back to. He's doing the wiring and the installation of the alarms. Yes, correct, correct. Okay, so I think they were 14. Well, let's be yeah, because I think basically two of them are the upstairs in the balcony, and then two of them are downstairs in the. Now, I think it was $6,000. So the thing I would say is that they may be giving us what they would advise as the best value to quality, but we may then say that's too much for our budget, in which we say because there are other like they're suggesting, for example, Samsung televisions. Samsung televisions, without question, are going to be the higher end. But we've gotten these TCL ones, which are like Vizios. They're less expensive and they're fine. Well, no, but that was I think the logic of go with what you got because these are TVs that, barring any catastrophe, they should last us 10 years at a minimum. And whatever. Okay, so long as it's kosher to you, then I looked it over. Oh yeah, yeah, no, just for a couple cameras. Yeah, yeah. Because again, if people have a way to make money off of you, they will make money off of you. That's for sure. Yeah, no, I think it did, and I think they seem like good, honest guys. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, I'm learning every time I go over there. I learn something new. It's yeah, no, me too. I also didn't realize how many doors there are. There are all these doors that go in all directions. It's I haven't even been downstairs to the sub basement yet. A lot of windows, unbelievable amount of windows. And I was just there earlier today. Not in the building, but picking up my daughter, so I could see it from the field. It's fantastic.
It's because it's gonna be. It's gonna be. You know. Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. And before all the the cold kicks in and all that stuff, I'm sure. Aha. You're kidding me. Wow. No, I didn't know that. That's what. Boy, you can prepare for everything until you can't prepare for. Oh no, no, I'm sure, but boy, that's not something you hear happening often in these situations, right? That's it. All right, good Shabbos, everybody. How's everybody doing? Oop, just as a quick poll of the people in the room, temperature-wise, feels too hot, not hot enough, just right. Little cold for you, okay. Roberta, what do you? Okay. Bonnie Ira, you're in the corner over there. Feels okay. You by the windows feels good. Good. Okay. Look, we're always aiming to please here at Temple Adas Israel / the Old Whalers Church. That's it. All right. Well, good Shabbos, everyone. It's great to see you. It's great to welcome our friends watching at home. And we're going to get started on page 120. And I'm not going to do it this week, but I think that we are at the point in which we can get back to one of our great traditions here, which was inviting people other than me to bless and light the Shabbat candles. So, I got a nod from the president, and if that's all I need to see. So we'll think about that for next week. Anybody wants to volunteer for the position, we'll do it. But I think, slowly we got to get back to some of our traditions that way. I think that will be nice. But in the meanwhile, I'll take one last. Well, the dancing is a little tricky here. It's a little bit of a different place. We'll see, but yes, those were our halcyon days. Those are things to look forward to. Yeah. Yes, that's also true. And we're on page 120. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, we're going to turn now to page 130 at the very top of the page. We'll begin with Lechu Neranana, again, page 130. Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Ladonai, Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Ladonai. Naria, Naria, letzori shenu nekadma fanav betodah. Naria, Naria, letzori shenu mizmirot Naria lo. Lechu neranena, Lechu neranena, Lechu neranena, Ladonai. Lechu neranena, Lechu neranena, Lechu neranena, Ladonai. We'll turn now to page 131, Shiru Ladonai, in the middle of the page. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Hu Shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru ladonai baruch hu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru ladonai, shiru shir chadash. Shiru ladonai kol haaretz. Shiru ladonai baruch hu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru ladonai baruch hu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. We'll turn now to page 132, the last Hebrew paragraph at the bottom of the page, Or Zarua. Or Zarua la tzadik, ulehishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik, ulehishrei lev simcha. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, v'hodu lezecher kodsho. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, v'hodu lezecher kodsho. We're now on page 134, the very top of the page. Zamru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra, bachatzotzrot bekol shofar. Ahariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, yiram hayamum lo, tevehel veyoshveva. Neharot imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiraneinu, lifnei Adonai kiva, lishbot haaretz, yishbot tebel betzedek, vehamim mesharim. Yiram hayamum lo, tebel veyoshveva. Neharot imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiraneinu. We're now on page 135, Romemu, which is the last Hebrew paragraph in the middle of the page. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu veishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu veishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu veishtachavu lehar kodsho. We'll turn now to page 136 at the very top of the page. Mizmor leDavid, avu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, avu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, avu l'Adonai kevod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai hamayim el hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover harazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon, Vayakidehem kemo hegel, Levanon v'Siryon, Kemo ben Reimim, Kemo ben Reimim. Kol Adonai chotzeb lahabotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai echol el ayalot, ויחשוף יערות ובכלו כולו מכבוד כולו מכבוד כולו מכבוד אדוני למבול ישב וישב אדוני מלך לעולם אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. We'll turn now to page 138 for Lecha Dodi. A reminder, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. And for the ninth paragraph, we'll rise and face towards the rear of the room. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor bezachur bedibur echad Ishmianu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemo tiferet velitila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor haberhacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Fifth paragraph. Hitoreri ki ba'orech kumi uri shir taberi kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Bohi beshalom ateret bala gam besimcha ubetzolha toch emunei aham segula bohi chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Please be seated. We're now on page 140, Tzadik Katamar in the Hebrew, just where it indents in the middle of the page. Tzadik Katamar yifrach keres bavanon yizke shetulim bebeit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun Seva Deshenim Verhananim Yehu Lehagin Ki Ashar Adonai Tzuri Velo Amlatabo. We'll turn now to the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144, and we'll rise in body or in spirit. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba B'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala u'bizman kariv heimeru Amen. Yeshmei Rabba mevarach Le'alam li'almei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imeru Amen. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. Please be seated. Let's turn together and read on the bottom of page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvahot shemo, Echai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai, Amari baravim. We'll turn now to page 151. We'll read together in English at the very top of the page. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Ki ehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, uvehem nege yomam v'layla. Bavatcha al tasir mimenu liolamim, Baruch ata Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please join me on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha u'bechol nafshecha u'bechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam ve'shiftecha ve'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'shochbecha u'vkumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot beinenecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liahot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158. Ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye 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 bim bam, ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye 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 bim bam, ya bye 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 bye, ya bye 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 bim bam, ya bye 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 bye, ya bye 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 bim bam. Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh. Nor tehilot osefele, nor tehilot osefele. Ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye 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 bim bam, ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye 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 bim bam, ya bye 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 bye, ya bye 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 bim bam, ya bye 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 bye, ya bye 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 bim bam. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, bokeam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze lianu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, v'nemar, kifad Adonai et Yaakov, u'golo mi'ad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai, gal Yisrael. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu, page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu, Shomreinu lechaim, Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu, Shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeteinu, uvoeinu, Lechaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'amidenu, shomreinu lechaim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, and over Yerushalayim. As we turn to page 162, very top of the page. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, La'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam bereit olam, Einai beini uvein bnei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim bet haaretz, uvayom hashevim Shabbat, Shabbat vayinafash. I'll invite us now to rise in body or spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace, and when you're finished, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftachu pi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yehoshvei tevel. Yahase shalom, yahase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahase shalom, yahase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We'll turn now to page 371 as we offer our Mishaberach this evening. We'll begin by thinking in our community of Bentzi Tepper, Allison Luckman, Malka Bat Chaya Sura, Spencer Levy, Michael Klinghoffer, Amy Cass, Steve Levine, Rivka Bat Rachel, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Sylvia, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sivia Devora Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Rose Spicer, Barbara Kushner, David Kyle Klopman, Lorraine Davis, Talia Pomeroy, Michoel Ben Hananya, Deborah Block Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Devora Bat Sima, Gerald Rosenblatt, Gail Gambino, Robert Acker, Bonnie Marty, Emily Bakes, and Jackie Marks. In addition to the names we just read aloud, if anyone in the room is with us and like to share additional names, we'll start on this side and we'll work our way in that direction. We'll join together for the Mishaberach in the middle of page 371. Mishaberach avotenu mekor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeirach imotenu, mekor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So, as I'm sure this is not news to anyone, the Jewish world has been very focused in the last few weeks, understandably so, on the comments of Kanye West and the various things that have precipitated from that. And I could see certainly in the room, a collective head shaking at this entire experience. And, I think others have spoken really quite eloquently about how serious this issue is, in particular with a person who has access to millions of people who treat him as a source of information for some reason. Whatever his talents may be musically or in terms of fashion, people have given themselves over in our world oftentimes to listening to people for whom we really should not listen in general. But we know that the reality is that many people listen, and many people have listened. And it took quite a while in this case to see the kind of reactions that we're starting to see now a couple weeks after the fact. Things that should have happened within 24 hours or 48 hours and took weeks. Justifications and explanations and all sorts of things. I'm not going to really focus on that tonight. I think actually if you'd like to watch something that I thought handled it very well, Rabbi Buchdahl spoke on, I think it was CBS News this week in an interview, and did a rather remarkable job, I think, of responding to it. I want to focus on something that I think actually flew and is flying under the radar a little bit more, that I'm in some ways equally concerned about and maybe even more concerned about. And I'm not sure that the Jewish world is thinking along these lines, and I hope that whatever it's worth this evening, that this will bring at least to our attention here in our community. So those of you that are connected to the land of Israel will know that next Tuesday, for the fifth time in what feels like, I think, a little more than 5 years, Israeli citizens will go to the polls and will vote in a new election. And as it's been really for the last several decades, but increasingly for the last, let's say, couple elections, the main players are the main players. And they're shuffling their seats in various kinds of ways. But it's a lot of the known figures, the known parties, the things that I've talked about every time that we've had an Israeli election. But there is a significant wrinkle in this year's election that is of deep concern. And I'm concerned in particular that most of us are not even aware of what is taking place. There is a party that is actually really the way that Israeli governance works, just to give us a 30-second reminder. Israel has a single parliament. So what happens is basically everyone can go, you can cast your vote for a particular party. That particular party will tell you ahead of time, in order from number 1 to number 120, if they were to get 120 of the 120 seats, these are the people that will fill those seats. But of course that never happens. There's only been, I think, one time recently where there was a coalition, I don't even think it was that recent, won enough seats, 61 seats, to make a government of their own. They inevitably have to partner with other groups, other factions, other parties. And unlike our system, in which we have really two major parties in which everyone votes, people vote widely and across the board in Israel for various things that they feel they are most connected to. In general, most Israeli governments are described as either a right-leaning government or a left-leaning government. The most recent one, probably the only one in recent history that could really actually describe itself as a centrist government, because it pulled from every segment of Israeli society in some form or the other. But in this year's election, it does not appear at the moment that there is an obvious leader. There are polls that indicate, however, that the most likely coalition will be made up by the Likud, the largest party that most likely will garner the largest amount of votes. The Orthodox parties that have generally caucused with the Likud. And then the concerning piece, the particularly concerning piece, a newish party that is known as the Religious Zionist Party, which itself doesn't seem so dangerous, until you start to scratch underneath the surface and to look to who it is that is leading this particular group. This group is made up really of two different parties that merged together at the pressuring, quite frankly, of Netanyahu and the Likud government, or the Likud party, I should say, in order to make sure that would otherwise be fringe parties that would not reach the threshold to be allowed into the Knesset, in other words, they wouldn't get enough votes to get the bare minimum, which is 4 seats, to merge those parties together to run together on a single ticket so that they are able to get above that threshold. And all polls seem to indicate that they will likely get anywhere between 12 to 15 seats of the Knesset, which may not seem like such a big deal to you, but remember, in a 120-seat Knesset, that is a significant percentage and most likely puts them in the position of what we would call a kingmaker, that they will be able to extract any number of things from the larger party in order to be part of the coalition, including ministerial positions, which in Israel, unlike the way that a cabinet is put together in the United States, the ministerial positions are generally given out as a means by which to cobble together the coalition. So people who oftentimes have no business, for example, running a transportation ministry or running an education ministry, will often be given those ministries in order to secure the votes of that particular party. So who are the people that I'm concerned about? 2 in particular, but really the entire list is scary from top to bottom. One you may have heard on the news, although I think it's not really finding its way past the Israeli news, is a man named Itamar Ben-Gvir. Just curious, other than Ron, has anyone heard this name before? Yeah, so this is precisely why I'm concerned. Itamar Ben-Gvir was a student of Meir Kahana's, a disciple of his. And while he has, in various slippery kinds of ways, tried to say that he's not a part of, in essence has been part of what was called the Kach party, which is an outlawed party in Israel, because it is considered to be the basis of a terrorist organization. That Meir Kahana himself, the followers that he garnered in the years that he was still alive, the party that he created in the 90s that actually did make it into one of the Knessets, who instilled fear, who caused ultimately Baruch Goldstein to take up a gun and to go into a mosque and kill 29 people in cold blood, who pushed for, in many ways, what led to the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. All of this from this one particular party, and Itamar Ben-Gvir is essentially the inheritor of this tradition. So he had been on the fringes for a very, very long time, until the last election, and now into this election, and has now become a household name in Israel, and is becoming increasingly, as I said, a concern. Just to give you a little sense of a few of his positions, he has repeatedly called for the forceful removal of any quote-unquote non-loyal residents of the State of Israel, which is not, by the way, just a comment towards the Arab population, but refers to really anybody considered disloyal. If this sounds familiar to anybody, we might draw some connections. In a TV interview going back to 1995, he boasted of stripping an ornament off of Yitzhak Rabin's car, saying, "We will get Rabin too." Weeks later, Rabin himself was assassinated. And in the end, Ben-Gvir became a lawyer later on who represented Jewish extremists who were suspected of attacking and killing Palestinians. Now, until recently, he wasn't, again, just sort of, this is a piece of his past. Until very recently, he had a portrait hanging in his home of Baruch Goldstein. Okay, this is the man I just described who in 1994 killed 29 people praying in a mosque. His partner and the head of the party, believe it or not, this guy is not the head of the party. He's the head of one of the groups that joined into it. The guy who was at the very top is a man named Bezalel Smotrich, which I'm assuming, again, if you don't know Ben-Gvir, this name probably doesn't ring out to you either. This man is aggressively anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ across the board. He once compared gay marriage to incest. In 2016, he tweeted in support of segregating Jewish and Arab women in maternity wards, saying, quote, "It's only natural that my wife would not want to lie next to someone who just gave birth to a baby that might murder her baby in another 20 years. And lest you think that their only issues are what they think about the Palestinians, they are both vehemently against Reform Judaism and, quite frankly, any non-Orthodox streams of Judaism in Israel and in the diaspora, to the point in which part of their policy going forward, should they make it into the government, is to, quote-unquote, build diaspora relations. In other words, to come to the United States and to try and teach their ideology in a response, basically, to what it is we, in many cases, hold sacred. These men, by the way, are representing most likely in this election roughly 500,000 voters, okay, in a country of about 8 or 9 million potential people, and actually 8 or 9 million total, so it's even a higher number of potential voters now that I think about it. Now, as I said, part of the most troubling piece of this is not that there are fringe people who live in Israel, or there are fringe people in general, but that the head of the largest party, most likely, being Netanyahu, was supposedly supposed to be concerned about the future of the state of Israel and the future of the Jewish people, is the one who brought these lunatics together and made it possible for them to be in the Knesset. So ultimately, okay, and the reason I brought up Kanye at the beginning, and the reason I brought up the conversation around anti-Semitism at the beginning, is because I think it is obvious that we need to be as engaged as we are in fighting anti-Semitism and existential threats to the Jewish people from without. But if I look into a room of people who I know are remarkably thoughtful and educated people and in which knew nothing about what I just described a few moments ago, okay, if the most engaged of us is not paying any attention to what's going on in Israel, if these guys end up becoming part of the government of the state of Israel as of next week, the existential threats are not just from without. This is a threat to every single one of us who calls ourselves, for example, Reformed Jews. Forgetting everything else, okay, your politics may be your politics about the Palestinians and about the peace process and all those things. I wish it weren't, but if that's the case, fine. But if you want to pick one thing to pay attention to right now, it is how we are looked at. I'm talking about each of you in this room, me in this room. I would not be acknowledged as, forget even a rabbi. I would not be able to bring us to the state of Israel and to be able to act and to behave in the way that we are accustomed to here in the United States. And if men like this and parties like theirs are able to receive, as I said, ministerial positions, which they almost certainly will because of the way that this system is ultimately constructed, they will have the potential to enact the kinds of laws that will not only threaten the non-Jewish population of Israel, but also a significant number of Jews living in both Israel and the diaspora, whose style of Judaism would no longer be welcome in our quote-unquote homeland. Now make no mistake, if they really have their way, if all of this plays out in the way that it can potentially play out, there is a future in which the state of Israel will have more in common with Iran than with the United States. And I want you to think about that for a second and let that settle in and what that means. Okay, we don't have voting rights in Israel. I don't think anybody in this room right now is a citizen of the state of Israel, have that capacity. But I've said time and time again from up here on the pulpit, whether it's here or back at the temple, that when we pay no attention to what's going on in Israel, and we ask no questions about where our money goes or where our support goes, when we raise no objection whatsoever, when we don't use our very powerful voices in Washington through the organizations that many of us support, when nobody is saying anything on the news, when we spend all of our time talking about a musician who has no basis to talk about anything, and we don't even know what's going on in our homeland, that is a concern. That is a real serious problem that we are, whether we realize it or not, we are part of that. We are, in a sense, complicit in that in some form or the other, because we allow this kind of stuff to happen. We turn a blind eye because we have basically created a circumstance in which any critique of Israel is considered to be an existential threat against it. That may be true in many cases, but we are a part of it. Okay? We are a part of diaspora Jewry as a part of the state of Israel. Whether these guys want to admit it or not, we are a part of it. And we will be a part of it. But if we do nothing, then forget about Kanye, forget about all these other guys. We'll have killed ourselves. We will have cut ourselves off at the legs. And it is as serious as it comes. And I don't think at this point, to be honest, there is anything that we're going to be able to do to change the reality there. My only hope, to be honest with you, is the dysfunction of the way their system of government is set up. They may not be able to form a coalition of any sort, and we may just get another round of elections. But I have very little hair left. It's enough to make me tear what's left out of my hair. So I think we have to, if there's one thing that we can do, in the next week, let's pay attention. Let us see what happens. And not just in a week, because the way it works, it's going to take weeks before we even have a sense of what's going on. But let's really try our very best to be reading the Israeli papers, to be asking our Israeli friends, if we have them, what's going on, trying to get ourselves as engaged as we are certainly here at home. And in knowing, obviously, with a very big election coming up for us here at home, our attention is here for certain, as it should be. But I think we have to make that space. And certainly what I would say is, in the end, if you read, let's say, 3 articles last week about Kanye and read none about Israel, there's at least one very simple fix right there. Give that man no more of your attention, no more of our money, no more of our anything, and let us turn to the Times of Israel, to the Jerusalem Post, to Haaretz, to all of the things that are available to us in English online, with the exception of Haaretz, which you have to pay for. But, Times of Israel is excellent, okay? Yediot Achronot is excellent. There are lots and lots of resources, and if you don't know where to begin, if it feels too overwhelming, then tell me. Let's set up a time to talk. Let's talk and let's get, this more engaged with us. And maybe the best thing is, in fact, now that I think about it, maybe I need to teach a short class of some sort to get us kind of up to speed on where we need to be to know these are the basics, these are the players, this is what's at stake, this is how things run. I think we just have some work to do, and I think that we can begin here. Okay, we can't control everything outside here, but we can begin here. If a handful of people that are with us in here and the others that are watching at home, if every one of us starts to do this and make this a part of our regular practice of making ourselves connected to the state of Israel in its good and in its bad, and pushing back against situations like this, I think we can really make a difference. I really think we can make a difference. But right now, as I said, there was a great cover, I think, of the Jerusalem Post, and it's something the effect of basically the silence is deafening. Right? That we haven't said anything in response to these guys, and now they think it's okay. They're going to walk in there and they're going to do whatever it is that they can do to make Israel into whatever they envision it to be. But I think Herzl will be turning over in his grave. I'll say that much. I can't even fathom a country that I love so much being a place where I would no longer feel comfortable taking my family, no longer feel comfortable davening with my family that lives there. To think of my family that lives there fighting on behalf of people like this, it boggles the mind. But at the same time, we remember the words of the national anthem of the State of Israel, which is Hatikva. Okay? It's always, always, always a country of hope. It's always a country of possibility. But in the end, we are a part of that hope, even if we don't live there, even if we don't fight there, even if we don't vote there. Israel will always be the heart and the soul of the Jewish people, and we do not have the luxury of ceding it to lunatics and to fanatics. We simply do not. So I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and I hope some of this reaches somewhere. We'll turn now to page 586, and we'll rise in body or spirit. Again, page 586, at the very bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabech.
Aleinu L'Shabech L'Adon HaKol Ateh Tidua Le'Yotzer Breshit Shelo Asanu Kegoyei Haratzot Velo Samanu Kemishpechot Adama Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem Vegor Aleinu Kefol Hamonaham Vanahnu Korim Umishtachavim Umodim Lifnei Melech Malkei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'nehemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad Ushemo Echad. I'll ask those in mourning, those observing yahrzeit, to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We think first of Martin Blake, Lynn Cowan, Faith Diskin, Arlene Eber, Jay Fagan, Ellen Frank, Chaim Bear Greenwald, Mark Joseph, Jane Beard Cass, Gertrude Katz, Buddy Kossoff, Helene Krotman, Emmanuel Kiprios, Leo Leibowitz, David Lieberman, Sandra Luongo, Norma Polsek, Lillian Schwartz, David Sent, Anita Sheldon, Alan Silver, Larry Wartor, Miriam Weinfeld, Peter Weinstein, Rita Weitzman, and Matthew Adam Zimmerman. We also mark the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Robert Abel, Abe Bennett, Samuel Blake, Nathan Blank, Herbert Blutt, Harold Carl, Helen Cassell, David Doctorow, William Gantz, Marilyn Ginsburg, Lucy Gladstone, Charles Goldberg, Anna Grossman, Gerald Hirsch,
Lillian Levy, Sonia Mazel, Bruce Mello, Bernice Miller, Gail Panitz, William Rocker, Benjamin Rubin, Susan Judith Ruby, Abraham Saltzman, Morris Rubin, Paul Schenker, Regina Sperling, Barry Tabachnik, Marion Weller, and Joseph Zucker. Is there anyone else saying Kaddish this evening for anyone we didn't mention? I'll invite the mourners to join with me on page 598 and those who choose to rise in solidarity. Again, mourners can join me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'b'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shalama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay, please be seated, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. A few important announcements. First is you can join us for Shabbat services tomorrow morning at 9:30. If you're going to join us in person here at the Old Whalers Church, we're going to enter through the side of the building and come into the chapel. You can also join us on Zoom, our website, YouTube channel, or Facebook page. And a reminder, of course, to join us for Torah study at 12 o'clock on Zoom as well. The Women's Rosh Chodesh group is meeting this Sunday at 2 o'clock. On Monday, Nina Mitzvah will be meeting at 11:30, and you can contact Andrea Fagan for more information if you'd like to join the group. My Heschel class will begin at 12 o'clock. Hebrew school is not taking place on Monday. However, the Social Justice Committee will have its virtual meeting at 5 o'clock on Monday. On Wednesday at 2:30, there is a tour in New York City of the New York Historical Society with the timely exhibit, Confronting Hate, 1937 to 1952. Please note the fee is $25 per person. You have to get yourself to the city on your own, and please do contact Toby Spitz for more information. And of course, my Friday class will be back on Friday, 9:15, A Journey to the Heart of the Siddur. Also, to note that we will, the following Sunday, so the first Sunday in November, if I remember correctly, the Social Justice Committee has sponsored, yet again, an apple picking opportunity for us at Seven Ponds Orchard. And I'm sure that knowing the Social Justice Committee, there is a social justice component to it as well. And I know we are doing good things with that. So we thank them for all of their hard work. And again, that'll be at Seven Ponds Orchard in Watermill, which, best of my memory, is on one of those 7 ponds, right? Lower 7 ponds? One of them. All I know is that I now take Eva and Emmett, I think, every weekend to one of these farm stands with all these things outside for them to play in. So it's one of them. I've been there. It's lovely. So please do join us. We'll really love to see you there. And also a note, I think it's the Thursday, the week before Thanksgiving, we will have, for the first time really in a few years, what I know is going to actually be a really great interfaith Thanksgiving service here, being hosted by our friends at the Old Whalers Church. And Pastor Nancy has really been working hard to get as many people in as possible. And we're going to have a great service here at 7 o'clock on that Thursday, and pie to follow, I'm told, afterwards for those that would like to eat some pie downstairs in the social hall. And in addition to that, Shelley has been working hard. Years ago, she had this vision of, since we have all of these pastors and leaders of different communities and different faiths, how great it would be to get the teens of these various communities together and to be able to interact with the clergy and ask them questions. So we haven't been able to do it since that original thing, and she's pulling it together, and I think we'll actually have a really great group. And as it happens, there is a small but growing Muslim community out here, of which there are several teens who are going to come as well, so our teens will get to know them. It's just, this is the kind of stuff we need to talk more about, stuff we really need to emphasize. But since we will be here, and since we have all this lovely streaming equipment, it will also be a stream service for anyone who doesn't feel comfortable or won't be in the area, so everyone can participate in that way as well. I'm trying to think of a few other things. Ron, is there anything to add, anything I'm missing? Not for the moment. So I'll just say positive, great things about the building. Thank you, Rita. I'm looking at Richard right now, thanking him every time I see him for everything he does to make that happen. We got a great team working really hard over there. I was just picking up, actually I was the mystery reader today in Eva's class, which was the most adorable thing ever. They have, different person come in, and then, they don't know who it is, so I walk in the door and even went nuts. But one of the great things in addition to that is I'm at the school, and the school has this unbelievable view of the temple and of the construction, and seeing it, and talking also to these kids, because they know me as Eva's dad, but several of them are also Hebrew school kids, so they know me also as the rabbi. So I told them, that's our building, that's my office right over there. So very sweet stuff, and a lot of great progress. And at this point, we're not even going to focus on the when. We just know it will happen, and when we get there, it'll be fantastic. But again, just anytime that you're in the neighborhood, drive by. You can see a lot just from the outside about how much progress has been made. So Richard, keep up the good work. And I think those are all of my announcements for tonight. Just always a reminder, if you're with us in the room, if you can bring your Sidurim back to give to Josie on your way out, and she will trade you some ragalach and challah. That's for sure. And let's do something to close. I feel like tonight would be a good Shalom Aleichem night. We haven't done in quite some time. So let's do that, and then we'll do Kiddush, and then we'll get home nice and safe. So Shalom Aleichem is on page 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Boachem leshalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruchuni leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Zetchem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. And so we'll rise for Kiddush on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'horei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav b'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'vratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikrae kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki bahanu v'acharta Ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'vratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. Chaim. I also forgot, and it's very important, as a rabbi, I cannot endorse or suggest who you should vote for, but as a rabbi, I absolutely can say, please vote. Vote, vote, vote. If you don't know how to vote, ask me, ask anybody, ask Ron, ask anybody who knows. If you have any problems getting to voting, you let us know. But boy, in the conversation we had tonight, there's one thing we can do here for sure. It is to exercise our given rights, our given rights. Very important. Early voting starts tomorrow. That is good to know. That is good to know. So with that, we'll say our motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Thank you, Josie, for opening it so I don't look so feeble trying to open, No, I can see that. I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. Good job, as everyone. Okay, get home safe. We're now at the part of the year where it gets dark out there, and if it's wet and stuff, just be very careful going down the steps. Okay? No accidents. No nothing. No, I just live here, Linda. I don't go home actually. I just sad but true. Sad but true. Sad.